I used to think loyalty meant something, that if you gave your blood, sweat, and every waking hour to a company, to people you thought were your family, they would stand by you. I was wrong. The day everything crumbled is etched into my mind with painful clarity. It was a gray Tuesday morning. I walked into the sleek glass office tower that had been my second home for nearly a decade. I'd built entire projects from the ground up, mentored fresh graduates, stayed overnight when deadlines loomed. Yet that morning, the air felt colder. People's eyes lingered on me a fraction too long. Some turned away quickly. Others whispered. I didn't understand why until I entered the conference room. Sitting at the head of the table was Daniel, the man I once called my closest colleague, almost a brother. His smug smile told me everything before the words even left his mouth. "Sarah," he said, voice dripping with mock sympathy, "the board has decided to restructure. Unfortunately, your position is being eliminated." The words echoed like gunshots. Restructure? Eliminated? I blinked at him, then at the board members who couldn't meet my eyes. "You're kidding." My voice cracked. "I closed the Reynard deal last week. I've brought in more revenue than half the executives in this room combined." But Daniel only leaned back, crossing his arms like a king surveying his fallen subject. "Sometimes it's not about numbers. It's about direction. And frankly, you're not part of ours anymore, that smug bastard." He'd been gunning for my position for months, whispering to the higher-ups, twisting stories, planting doubts. And now he was savoring every second. I wanted to fight. I wanted to stand up and scream, to tell them the truth. But the weight of betrayal pressed me down. The people I trusted, the people I gave years of my life to, were watching silently. No one came to my defense. By the end of that meeting, my badge was deactivated. My desk was cleared by HR assistants who couldn't even look at me. I walked out with a single cardboard box, filled with fragments of a career I thought was untouchable. When the elevator doors closed, I finally let my mask fall. Tears blurred the city skyline as the elevator descended. They didn't just fire me. They stripped me of my identity, my security, my pride. That night, in the silence of my apartment, I broke. The shadows felt heavier, the walls closer. I replayed Daniel's smile again and again, and that's when something inside me shifted. If they thought I was helpless, they had no idea who I really was. The first days were the hardest. Job applications went unanswered. Recruiters, once eager to talk to me, now avoided my calls. Daniel had not only pushed me out, he'd poisoned my name in the industry. I discovered the truth one afternoon when I ran into an old colleague, Emily. She hesitated before speaking, guilt all over her face. "Sarah, I think you should know. Daniel's been saying you mishandled client funds, that you're unstable." My stomach dropped. Lies. Filthy, calculated lies. He wasn't satisfied with taking my job. He wanted to erase me completely. For a while, I let despair consume me. But every time I thought about giving up, I remembered Daniel's smirk, the way the board members avoided my eyes, the silence of those who had once applauded me. And slowly, something hardened inside me. I began waking up early again, not to go to their office, but to build something of my own. I read through old notebooks filled with strategies, client insights, ideas I'd been too loyal or too scared to pursue under the company's thumb. For weeks, my small kitchen table became my war room. Sticky notes covered the walls. Spreadsheets sprawled across my laptop screen. I lived on coffee and determination. At first, it felt impossible. Who was I without their name behind mine? But then I realized, the clients, the deals, the successes, they were never the company's. They were mine. I reached out quietly to people who still respected me, those who knew my worth beyond Daniel's lies. A few doors slammed in my face, but some opened. Small, hesitant at first. but enough to give me a foothold. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about proving them wrong. Every night, as I collapsed into bed, I thought of Daniel, of the board, of the way they had thrown me out like trash, and I whispered to myself, I'll take it all back. And when I do, it'll be more than they can handle. By the time my first independent project was completed, a modest but solid contract with a mid-sized firm, I felt something I hadn't in months. Power. It was small, yes, but it was mine, and as I signed my name on that dotted line, I knew it was only the beginning. What they took from me, I would rebuild, and when the time was right, I wouldn't just take back what was stolen. I would take everything they thought they owned, and the world would watch them crumble. The first taste of victory was intoxicating. That mid-sized firm, though not glamorous, treated me with the respect I had long been denied. They listened to my ideas, trusted my instincts, and saw results. When their revenue ticked upward within weeks, I felt vindicated. But one success wasn't enough. The hunger inside me grew. For years I had chained myself to that glass tower, feeding Daniel and the board my brilliance while they claimed the credit. Now every ounce of my effort went directly into my own vision, and the taste of independence was sweeter than anything money could buy. I didn't just want to rebuild. I wanted to dominate. So I got to work. By day, I was calm and professional with my new clients. By night, I studied every crack in the empire Daniel had stolen from me. Their quarterly reports, their client satisfaction ratings, even whispers from old contacts who still fed me scraps of gossip. And that's when I noticed it. A weakness. Daniel, in his arrogance, had overpromised. He was chasing bigger clients than he could handle, cutting corners, treating employees like disposable pawns. Where I had built loyalty and trust, he sowed fear and resentment. It was only a matter of time before that house of cards began to wobble. So I waited. And I sharpened my blade. One night, as I stared at the city lights from my small apartment balcony, I said aloud, Daniel, you thought you buried me, but you only planted me. And just like that, the spark became a flame. The first strike had to be subtle. I couldn't afford to reveal myself too soon. I started by approaching clients Daniel had mishandled, the ones who had been promised the world but delivered excuses. I didn't slander him. I didn't have to. All I did was listen, nod, and offer solutions. One by one, they began to shift. Small contracts at first, then bigger ones. I wasn't just taking clients. I was taking trust, the very thing Daniel could never truly command. But it wasn't enough to win quietly. I wanted him to feel it. So I orchestrated a move that would shake his foundation. There was a major client, Vanguard Logistics, one I had nurtured for years before Daniel stabbed me in the back. He'd swooped in, convinced them I was unreliable, and secured their contract. But word had reached me, they were unhappy. Deadlines were missed, budgets inflated, and Daniel was too arrogant to care. I called their CEO directly. The moment he heard my voice, there was silence. Then a sigh of relief. Sarah, I wish you were still with us. Things haven't been the same. That was my opening. I may not be with them anymore, I said softly. But I'm still me. And I can fix what Daniel broke. Within weeks, Vanguard dropped his firm and signed with me. The day the announcement hit the industry news, I imagined Daniel's face as he read it, rage twisting his smug smile, panic settling in as he realized I wasn't gone. I was back, and I was coming for him. The first few blows I landed were precise, controlled. I didn't want to reveal too much too soon, but Vanguard's switch made noise. Too much to stay invisible. and Daniel noticed. It didn't take long before the retaliation began. I was working late one evening, the glow of my laptop the only light in the room, when an email came through from a client. "Sarah, we've been approached by your former firm. They claim you've been spreading false rumors and that you can't be trusted. I don't know what to believe." My chest tightened. Daniel was trying to poison the well. It was classic him. When charm failed, he turned to lies. I typed a calm reply, carefully measured. "I'll let the work speak for itself. I don't need to make claims. You've seen the results we've achieved together." They stayed, but I knew the war had officially begun. The next week, one of my former colleagues reached out, whispering nervously through the phone. "Sarah, I thought you should know. Daniel's been holding meetings. He's telling everyone you're unstable, that you left because you couldn't handle the pressure. He's warning clients not to take your calls." I let out a bitter laugh. Unstable? That's rich coming from him. But inside, the anger simmered. He wasn't just trying to protect his business. He was trying to destroy me personally. Still, instead of panicking, I remembered something my mentor once told me. When they come at you with fire, don't try to put it out with water. Fan it into a blaze they can't control. So I did. If Daniel wanted to paint me as unstable, fine. I'd let him. Because while he wasted energy on character assassinations, I was focusing on something much more dangerous: growth. I quietly secured 2 new contracts, each larger than Vanguard. And while Daniel obsessed over me, he failed to notice the cracks forming inside his own walls. By now, my little firm wasn't so little anymore. I had a team, small but fiercely loyal. People who had also been discarded, underestimated, or mistreated by Daniel's empire. We weren't just co-workers. We were survivors. At lunch meetings in cramped cafes, they'd vent about the way Daniel used to belittle them, how he promised promotions that never came, how he exploited their work and took the credit. Each story added fuel to my fire. One woman, Lena, leaned across the table one afternoon and whispered, "He doesn't see it yet, Sarah, but everyone inside knows the truth. He's losing control." She was right. Reports began trickling in. Projects missed. Employees resigning in frustration. Even whispers of lawsuits brewing. And then came the opportunity I couldn't resist. A major conference was approaching. It was the kind of event where reputations were made, or shattered. Daniel was scheduled to give the keynote speech, his usual performance of charisma and false promises. But this year, I would be there too. I didn't need to sabotage him outright. All I had to do was shine brighter. When I took the stage for my panel discussion, the room buzzed. People hadn't expected to see me there. Some whispered. Others leaned forward with intrigue. I spoke not with bitterness, but with clarity. I shared insights, told stories of resilience, and laid out solutions that resonated with everyone in the room. By the time I finished, there was a standing ovation, and as I stepped down from the stage, I locked eyes with Daniel across the room. His smile was forced, his applause slow, but his eyes burned with barely contained rage. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was winning. Daniel had always thrived in control. The boardroom was his stage, clients were his audience, and fear was his favorite weapon. But now he was slipping, and men like Daniel don't go down quietly. I first saw the signs in the industry journal. A bold headline, "Vanguard facing internal shakeup." The article was vague, but the whispers weren't. Executives were unhappy. Investors were nervous. Daniel needed a scapegoat. And who better than me? Late one night, my phone buzzed with a notification. A journalist had published an anonymous tip, claiming I'd stolen data from Vanguard before leaving. My hands clenched around the phone. It was a blatant lie, planted to discredit me. For a moment, my chest ached with fear. What if clients believed it? What if everything I'd built came crashing down? Then I remembered the leverage I had, the receipts, the proof, the countless witnesses to Daniel's manipulations. Instead of reacting in panic, I drafted a statement. Calm, precise, professional. I released it publicly. Integrity is the foundation of my work. False rumors don't scare me. They expose the desperation behind them. I'll continue doing what I've always done, delivering results. And it worked. Not only did clients stay, but several even called me directly, their voices steady with anger. Sarah, this is pathetic. We can see what he's trying to do. Don't worry. You have our full support. That was when I realized Daniel wasn't the puppet master anymore. He was the one tangled in his own strings. Still, I couldn't just defend myself forever. If he was willing to go this far, I had to go further. So I began crafting something bigger. An attack so sharp it wouldn't just wound him. It would end him. The first piece of the trap came from Lena. She slipped a folder onto my desk one morning, her eyes wide with both fear and excitement. Inside were documents, emails, contracts, payment slips. Proof of Daniel's double dealings. He'd been inflating invoices, pocketing the difference, even misreporting expenses to investors. Sarah, Lena whispered, this is enough to bury him. My breath caught. It was more than enough. I could have gone straight to the authorities, but that would have been too easy, too clean. Daniel had humiliated me, broken me down piece by piece. No. His downfall had to be public. I started planning. First, I secured copies of everything, storing them in encrypted drives and sealed envelopes. If Daniel suspected anything, he'd never find the originals. Then I reached out to a journalist I trusted, the kind who valued truth over spectacle. We began preparing a story that would shake the foundations of Vanguard itself. But I wasn't reckless. I waited, I watched. I let Daniel think he still had the upper hand. At the next industry gala, he swaggered into the room, arrogance radiating like cologne. He spotted me across the hall, smirk tugging at his lips, as if to say, "You'll never beat me." I smiled back, calm, patient, because I knew something he didn't. The walls were already closing in. The emails were set to release. The contracts were being scrutinized. His empire wasn't just cracking. It was moments away from collapse. And when the truth came out, he wouldn't just lose his company. He'd lose everything he'd built his name on. The article went live on a crisp Monday morning. Headline: Exclusive. Vanguard CEO accused of fraud, misreporting, and investor deception. The world erupted within hours. Emails flooded my inbox. My phone buzzed nonstop. Every news channel, every finance blog, every investor forum, Daniel's name was on fire. The evidence Lena and I had gathered was undeniable. Screenshots of his falsified invoices, records of hidden accounts, correspondence where he casually instructed subordinates to massage the numbers. By noon, Vanguard's stock had dropped 15%. By evening, board members had called an emergency meeting. Daniel, once the picture of smug confidence, now looked like a man drowning. I watched the coverage from my office, a quiet smile playing on my lips. My assistant peeked in, her voice trembling with excitement. "Sarah, you did it," but I shook my head. Not yet, because there was still one piece left, the part that would twist the knife. That night, Daniel called me. His voice was raw, broken, nothing like the man who once humiliated me in front of colleagues. Sarah, please. You don't know what you've started. This could ruin me. I let the silence stretch, savoring it. Then I replied, my tone steady, almost cold. You ruined yourself, Daniel. I just held up the mirror. The line went dead. I didn't need to hear his voice anymore. Tomorrow the board would convene. And tomorrow, they would decide his fate. The board meeting was brutal. Reporters swarmed the lobby, cameras flashing like lightning storms. Inside, investors grilled Daniel until his voice cracked. His excuses, misunderstandings, clerical errors, blown out of proportion, fell flat. One by one, the board members voted. By the end of the session, Daniel was out. Stripped of his title, forced to resign in disgrace. And here's where fate twisted the story even sharper. Several of Vanguard's biggest clients, disgusted by the scandal, pulled their contracts and came straight to me. Within weeks, my company wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. I hired some of Daniel's best former employees, the ones he treated like disposable pawns. They came to me with gratitude, loyalty, and relief. Lena, my quiet ally, became my right hand. Together we built something stronger than I'd ever imagined. Daniel? He faded into the shadows. The man who once strutted across stages now couldn't walk into a cafe without whispers following him. His legacy wasn't power anymore, it was shame. And me? I didn't just get my career back. I built an empire he could never touch. When people asked how I survived, I always smiled softly and said, they thought they took everything from me. But in the end, I took back more than they could handle.